we've got America's enemies led by China forming a new economic bloc. Look, there's a perfect storm happening right now, Will. If that were to happen, there would be a complete implosion of the global economic system, but certainly the American economic system. And if that were to happen, you'd be looking at sky-high inflation, just raging Weimar Republic kind of inflation. If you think inflation is bad now, just wait. That is going to undermine the entire global economic system. And here at home, you know what it's going to mean for us? It's going to mean raging inflation, so much worse than anything we have ever experienced, Will. Yeah. And I'll tell you, they're setting it up, setting it up, setting it up.
Could this really be happening in America right now? The land of the free, the home of the brave. The greatest superpower in the history of the world, driven into the hands of its enemies by those sworn to protect the Constitution, at the economic mercy of rogue nations, hell-bent on driving a dagger through its heart, fighting tooth and nail for its very survival, now on the brink of economic collapse. I can't believe it, yet the evidence is irrefutable. My name's Dave Seymour. You may have seen me on Fox News, CNBC, CBS, or any other number of major networks. The New York Times reported that our series, Flippin' Boston, posted the highest airing for time of the show, positively impacting the lives of millions of viewers. Now listen, I'm not a financial advisor. I never worked a day in my life on Wall Street. And I can't stand the fake gurus and talking heads who pretend to know it all, but are really just the blind leading the blind. If they're so smart, why didn't they prevent the financial crisis of 2008, right? I don't have a trading service to sell you. I don't pitch you stocks or crypto, nor do I have a horse in the race in Washington's political fiasco. And that is causing irreparable damage and bringing our country to its knees. Me, I'm just an immigrant who came to this country from across the pond with a dream and barely two nickels, to rub together. While I'm not one of the financial elite or part of the mainstream media, I am one of the few people in the country with his finger on the pulse of what's really going on. So you see, I saw the writing on the wall early on, right after the Great Recession, in fact. Well before Biden inflicted one disastrous economic policy after another upon America. My team and I hedged against the fallout and grew our wealth as Biden's blunder drove inflation to a 40-year high. We told anyone who would listen how to shield their money before the crisis hit home, devastating millions of good, honest folks. I also have certain insights on the geopolitical landscape and how it affects the economy, money, and your retirement. Insights not shared by most financial pundits. Yet it helped me become financially independent, and within 1 year of doing this, now we have millions of dollars worth of assets under management. These assets spinning off profit month after month, totally outside of the traditional financial system. Follow me as I get to the bottom of what's happening in our country and uncover the truth about the developing crisis, one single event creating the biggest wealth transfer in history. My research tells me that the future of America lies in the balance, leading to perhaps the greatest financial disaster the world has ever known, while allowing a few to build generational wealth without Wall Street. The crazy thing is, this is not a prediction. It's not. It's happening. When? Right now. We're in the very early stages, but the damage is already being done. It's a fact. You can see it all around if your eyes are open. In the massive inflation that's hitting Americans in the pocketbook every single day, and it's hitting them hard. Just to prove my point, think about this. The rule of thumb is that house prices should equal about 2.6 years of income. But as Harvard University study pointed out recently, the median sale price for a single family home, wait for it, is now around 5.6 times higher than the median household income. This is higher than at any point in the history, going all the way back to the early 1970s. So let's go through the list. Food is more expensive than ever. Gas is more expensive than ever. Housing is more expensive than ever. Everything is more expensive than ever. except maybe for the TVs that you can buy at Walmart, but we know where they come from. And Washington, what are they doing? They're telling us don't worry about it, inflation is under control. Who are they kidding? There's no way that most Americans can keep up. This, my friends, is just a prelude to what's about to happen next. The coming devastation will make the financial fallout from the Great Recession and the recent pandemic feel like a walk in the park. Like I said, it's already started. A recent survey by payroll.org shows that 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That's more than 259 million people barely scraping by. Millions of jobs have been lost and millions more are on the chopping block. Civil unrest, let's be honest, hasn't been this bad in 50 years. Protests against the police, the rise of the so-called woke class counseling freedom of speech, riots, looting, killing in the streets. It's fact, it's not fiction. Crime is on the rise like never before. It's all happening right now, turning the United States into the splintered states of America. According to my research, Peter Turchin, the scientist who predicted growing civil unrest across the states, he believes that macro violence outbreak is on our soil. So what's next? Our American rights ripped out of our hands? Martial law? Maybe even the unthinkable, civil war. My research shows that won't even be the worst of it, which is why I've spent a considerable amount of time and money digging for the truth. Now I'm bringing this information to light. I want to share it with you so that the details of this can be seen because they are specific about this event. It's already sending shockwaves across the global economy. Echoing in the back of my head are recent warnings from legendary market makers and political insiders about the inevitable. Jeremy Grantham, British investor and co-founder of GMO LLC with an estimated $100 billion under management, said, "Today in the US, we are in the fourth super bubble of the last 100 years. Grantham believes as things unfold, a massive Great Depression-like crash is coming." Jim Rogers, who ran the Quantum Fund with George Soros, which achieved an unheard of average return of 30% from 1970 to 2000. Well, what did he say? He warned, you should be extremely worried, and if you're not, you don't know what's going on. The next bear market, they said, will be the worst in my lifetime. Former Assistant Treasury Secretary Monica Crowley, who warned that what's about to take place soon could cause, and I quote, a complete implosion of the global economic system, but certainly the American economic system. And as President Trump told Fox News, it was unthinkable. Unthinkable. Would never have happened, he said. Now people are thinking about it. Well, that's because it's actually unfolding before our very eyes. You'll see how this single event is already playing out and impacting your job, your business, your retirement, your very way of life right now, in ways that were unimaginable just a few years ago. Every dollar in your savings, brokerage, and retirement accounts will be gutted. And as they say on Wall Street, now there will be blood in the streets. I believe my investigation and the conclusions I've come to in this documentary can help you and your loved ones navigate and even profit from what is fast becoming the biggest economic collapse in modern history. However, before I can explain the steps I'm taking to protect and grow my wealth before it's too late, the same steps you can take as well. I need to take you back a little over a decade ago and fill you in on a few critical details. On January the 21st, 2012, my life, well, it changed forever. That was the day the first episode of A&E's Flippin' Boston aired on TV. Now, for the next 4 years, my business partners and I showed millions of people how to profit from real estate in the aftermath of the 2008 financial collapse. It was during this time I learned how to turn crisis into opportunity. The notoriety of having a major TV show was nice, but what was even better is that it led me to certain conclusions about the future of our country. I'm going to share those conclusions with you in this documentary. I'm also going to answer some of the hard questions that could help you avoid the financially crippling consequences of an economic system on the brink. Questions like this: will the US be replaced as the world's economic superpower? And if so, how and when? Will that lead to a catastrophic economic collapse and hyperinflation like we've never seen before? What are the implications for your money, retirement, legacy? Most importantly, how can you navigate this single event and come out ahead, maybe even better off than you are right now?
It's going to mean raging inflation, so much worse than anything we have ever experienced, Will.
I've spent a lot of time, capital, and investment, if you will, in figuring out what's going on with the inflationary environment. This documentary is called Inflation Nation. It's a work in progress. I think it's kind of catchy, but it's really about finding out what is going on. Why are we living in the inflationary environment in which we're living in right now? Because what's going to happen is you know what is going to hit the fan. And it's probably going to hit the fan worse than it did in the 2008 financial crisis. There's no better place to start talking about inflation than there is in the grocery store. We got the delivery coming in, but I really want to break it down for you and show you exactly what the average American is dealing with. Not yesterday, not the day before, but today and every single day that we can see going forward. Looks like on time, which is nice. Thank you for that. Let me give you a tip. I threw some money in the app, but here's a little extra for you. Thank you. So I don't always get the groceries delivered, but there's a method to my madness. Let's just think about the cost of these goods. Not only the services, but what about the cost of the goods? Let's go on inside. We'll break this down. You'll get a little bit of an insight into what's really going on with our inflation nation. Let's start just with a carton of eggs. Since 2020, when the federal election went down, the price of food has gone up approximately 700%, 7 times what it was in 2020. Our eggs today are ridiculously priced in comparison to what they were going forward. Your food inflation was running at just 3.9% annually back in 2020. And by late 2025, food prices had risen a staggering 28.8%. Inflation data shows that eggs, these little things here, 54% increase. It's ridiculous what people are dealing with. Why is the question that needs to be asked? Why is it that my gallon of milk is over $5? I just looked it up on the delivery app. Over $5 for a gallon of milk. That's up 36%. 36%. We start looking at any dairy product, butter, cheese, 30% since 2020. It just continues to grow. And when we start getting into the meat and potatoes of it all, as they say, beef, that's gone up 20%. Do you like chicken sausages? Healthy chicken sausages. They're good for the cholesterol. My wife is happy I eat these things. But you know what? My wallet isn't. It's gone up over 25% since 2020. It continues to grow. The future doesn't look so bright anymore, does it? Now I hear you saying, well, hasn't the wage increase matched the cost of goods and services? No, they have not increased. Nominal wages are up 22.7% since 2020. Consumer prices have shot up 21%. So that's a so-called real pay increase of only 0.3%. It's a fraction of what we need it to be. Oh, by the way, Wall Street calls that progress. You know what they're doing? They're just spinning nonsense and they're trying to fool us. But people know that incomes have not met the inflationary environment. They feel it. They feel it in their pocketbook every single day. Don't get me started on gas prices. Incredible. In 2020, the average national gas price was around $1.87 a gallon. Today, in some places, they charge more than $4 a gallon. If you're out in California. The reason everything costs more is because they are deliberately destroying the dollar. There it is. I just dropped a bomb. I heard Monica Crowley, the former Assistant U.S. Treasury Secretary, saying that as this happens, it's going to mean raging inflation. And as I said, they're doing it on purpose. It's a setup. She also said that when they come to the rescue, it'll be game over for millions of Americans. So what's next? Well, I've invited my friend over. DC. He's a business partner. He's also a business owner. He owns multiple multi-million-dollar businesses. He has some insights that'll be super valuable that we can pull out of him and him out of me through conversation. We're going to be talking about the economic assault on the American society. What is coming down the pipe? we might also be able to get into how can you protect yourself from the juggernaut that's on its way. Here he is. Hey, DC.
Hey, Seymour.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How are you?
I'm excellent.
You
How are you?
I'm well, brother. I'm well. Glad to see you here. I tell you, we got a lot of stuff going on today.
Awesome.
Hey, come on, DC. Look out here, brother. Look at this for a setup. Take a seat over there.
All right.
I tell you, man, you are perfect for this. You really are. With your business experience, the things that you've gone through personally, I think this is going to be a really, really beneficial thing for you. Don't worry about these cameras.
I don't even know where to look.
you don't know what's going on, do you?
So you told me you're doing this documentary. What is it all about, and why are you doing it?
Compared to 1 year ago, consumer prices were up 3.3% last month.
Everything is so much higher than it was 2 years ago.
More broke now than I was in 2020.
Food prices, up 1% over the last year, have surged about 20% since 2021.
Eggs, milk, bread, everything's really high, so that is a big ticket issue.
It's a really big topic between my friends and I, even my families. Will we be able to buy a house?
If the costs continue to go up at the rate they have been going, that so many families are struggling around us, and ourselves included.
I actually am leaving teaching because I can't make enough money.
Higher cost of living, higher cost of transportation, higher cost of food, to have that medical expense on top of it has made things more difficult.
What other options? We can't give up. We have kids.
Going to be able to slow those rising prices. What you described, Jeff, is certainly something that would lead to a deep downturn or recession.
People need to understand two things off the bat if they hope to survive what's going on or coming down the pike. The first thing they need to know is what really causes inflation. Now, there are a few factors, but one stands head and shoulders above the rest. The second thing they need to know is how America became the world's superpower, how we maintain that exclusive position in the global economy, and the one thing that can cause us to lose that esteemed status.
I hear a history lesson coming.
Look, this isn't what they teach in school, unfortunately, right?
It's no wonder people don't know what's really going on.
So let's start with inflation. According to the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, inflation is the rate of increase in prices over a given period of time. The IMF monitors economies around the globe. They see what drives prices off the charts. And here's what the IMF says is the biggest factor causing sky-high inflation, and I quote, "Long-lasting episodes of high inflation are often the result of lax monetary policy. If the money supply grows too big relative to the size of an economy, the unit value of the currency diminishes. In other words, the purchasing power falls and prices rise."
Sounds like common sense to me. If the supply of anything outpaces the demand, then the value and the price of that thing diminishes. Money's no different.
That's right. And here's the kicker. 80% of all US dollars in existence were printed between January of 2020 and October of 21. The supply of money shot up from $4 trillion to $20 trillion, DC.
That's 5 times more supply pumped into the system in less than 24 months.
24. It gets even more interesting because at the outset of 2020, listen, we had $4 trillion, right?
Right.
By January of 2021, that amount surged to nearly $7 trillion. But the real damage came at the changing of the guard. Between January of 2021 and October of 2021, the money supply spiked from around $7 trillion to $20 trillion.
Wow, no wonder the dollar is taking it on the chin. How could we possibly maintain the dollar's value when we're printing dollars like there's no tomorrow?
Right. See, we can't. It's not sustainable. That's the whole point. Anytime you have an abnormal inflow of money, it creates a bubble. It creates one somewhere. Often that bubble forms in the paper asset market, or the stock market as it's commonly called. The worst part is that millions of people are invested in stocks. They don't know how to protect their savings with alternative investments before the bubble pops, and then boom, you know what hits the fan.
So how does this tie in with America being the world's superpower?
Well, it's a great question. Look, This is when we have to go back in time and go over a little history lesson that will leave most people absolutely speechless, because this is how the dollar became the dominant currency and turned America into a superpower. It's also the reason the dollar's dominance is being challenged left, right, and center.
I can't wait to hear this.
Take a look at this picture.
That looks like President Franklin Roosevelt and King Abdul Aziz bin Saud, the king of Saudi Arabia at the time.
Hey, you know your history, DC, even if you don't know how to pronounce it properly. Look, in February of 1945, the secret oil for security deal was struck between President Roosevelt and King Abdul Aziz bin Saud. World War II had just ended. The US needed energy supplies and saw international competition for Saudi oil. Well, they saw it as a threat. Saudi Arabia wanted protection for its oil reserves and other resources. So the US and the Saudis made a pact that has lasted almost 80 years.
Let me guess. We protect the Saudis and their interests, and they give us all of the oil we need at prices we don't mind paying.
You got it, brother. What's important to note is that the dollar was the gold standard back then. Then something interesting happened less than 3 decades later. Take a look at this picture. Yeah, this is Richard "My House" Nixon. Right? He was the 37th president, which is a nice distinction to have, except he has another distinction that isn't so great for the dollar. On August the 15th, 1971, he took the dollar off the gold standard.
That's known as the Nixon shock. And it's one decision that has come back to bite us in the butt.
Absolutely. We went off the gold standard and into credit. Everything is credit now. In one way, this is a good thing, because for the first time in history, wealth could be created out of thin air. The bad part is that wealth usually goes into the pockets of wealthy investors who know how to position themselves. Regular Main Street folks, they don't have any idea. Now, going from a gold standard to a credit system has condemned the middle class in America to a slow and grinding loss of wealth.
But why did Nixon take us off the gold standard anyway?
Great question. Nixon claimed that it was a temporary move to stabilize the dollar. What happened next is even more shocking. Fast forward just 3 years later, February 1974, confidence in the dollar has been cratering. The price of oil skyrocketing, and during a secret meeting at the White House, Professor W. Tucker of the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies was joined by a handful of foreign policy experts, including Dr. Helmut Sonnenfeld, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger's deputy to the National Security Council.
Foreign policy experts, Henry Kissinger. What? Were they planning an invasion?
That's exactly what they were planning. Many Americans don't know this because this isn't taught in schools anymore.
If it ever was.
But this is how America has maintained superpower status for over 5 decades since Nixon. These foreign policy experts engaged in a strategy discussion. They were debating a military invasion of Saudi Arabia. Why? Well, to secure their oil fields, supply the oil needs of the West and Japan, and the price of oil to suit their own needs.
Sounds like we were planning a full-scale takeover. How did we avoid it?
Henry Kissinger came up with a brilliant plan, a New Deal. Today, we call it the Petrodollar Accord. Here's how it works. The Saudis would sell us oil in US dollars exclusively. That's why it's called the petrodollar. Then the Saudis would reinvest petrodollars into the US Treasury secretaries and the US bank deposits.
So but what do the Saudis get out of this deal?
Well, they get protection. Remember, we're talking more than 50 years ago. The geopolitical landscape was different, DC, but what was even more different was the fact that the Saudis back then needed advanced weapons and military hardware, not to mention US military support to protect the oil fields and the Saudi royal family.
Okay, but how would this make the dollar the dominant currency in the world?
First of all, everyone needs oil. Whenever any nation other than the US goes to buy oil, they have to buy it in dollars. They then use those dollars to buy the oil because all oil transactions were supposed to be settled in US dollars.
Now you've got the BRICS nations transacting in their own currencies.
There it is. And I'll get to that in a moment. That's a very important point. Okay, so first, all oil transactions are supposed to be settled in US dollars. Second, US banks would use the petrodollar deposits by Saudi Arabia to make loans to emerging markets. Those developing countries would purchase goods from the US, Europe, and Japan, which would create global growth, which would lead to continued demand for oil and dollars.
Well, the petrodollar accord worked for 50 years.
It did. But now its days are numbered.
Oh, man.
The days of the dollar, it's factual. They're coming to an end. This is what President Trump meant when he said it was unthinkable. Unthinkable. Would never have happened. Now people are thinking about it. He's talking about the end of the dollar. Countries moving to trade with other currencies. This is also why former Assistant Treasury Secretary Monica Crowley warned that we could see, quote, a complete implosion of the global economic system, but certainly the American economic system.
If the dollar loses its world reserve currency status, inflation will shoot up sky high.
We're already seeing it happen, DC. Remember the sky-high inflation we saw at the grocery store when they delivered? Well, that's nothing compared to what could happen when the US dollar collapses.
So how exactly can the dollar collapse? And what would that mean?
One way is if enough countries decided to trade in another currency other than the US dollar. Well, there's already a push for that to happen, and it's known as the BRICS countries.
That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, right?
Yeah, those countries, they started this movement away from trading in dollars because the world is losing confidence in our currency and our government. The BRICS nations produce about a third of global GDP. If they succeed in changing the global monetary system, it will send shockwaves throughout global markets.
It seems like this initiative to move away from the US dollar started to pick up steam in 2023.
Yeah, the floodgates opened in January 17th of 23. Now that's when Saudi Arabia embarrassed the US by saying it was willing to accept other currencies for oil. Well, then the snowball effect took over. India and Russia decided to ditch the dollar and trade oil in non-dollar currencies. Brazil and China agreed to conduct future trade in their own currencies. And to add insult to injury, listen, even Saudi Arabia is considering joining the BRICS nations. It's crazy.
The only logical question is how long before the dollar gets ditched for good?
Probably sooner rather than later. Look, you even have our allies using other currencies. The French oil giant, for example, Total Energies, they bought natural gas from China using the yen. US allies like India and Pakistan, the United Arab Emirates, are marking deals and making deals with Russia and China to trade in the non-dollar currencies.
It's a global movement now.
By the Fed's own admission, from 1999 to 2019, the dollar accounted for 96% of trade invoicing in the Americas, or 74% in the Asian Pacific region and 79% in the rest of the world. The only exception's been Europe, where the euro is dominant with about 66%.
By all accounts, the dollar was the dominant global currency.
It was back then. Today, the story is a little bit different. About 88% of all foreign exchange transactions take place in dollars now.
Not much of a change.
Yeah, but the sentiment around the globe has changed, and it's changed quite a bit. There's never been a louder cry from other nations to move away from the dollar. The movement is happening faster than ever before. So let's put everything on the table. Ever since Nixon took us off the gold standard, inflation has silently robbed the middle class. The dollar has lost a jaw-dropping 98.5% of its gold value since the credit system went live. Which means every American is paying more for their dollars and they're worth less.
That loss of value, in part, coming from the massive expansion of our dollars in circulation.
Exactly. Too many dollars in the market is driving down demand. As demand falls, so does the value of every dollar in your wallet or your bank account. And all of this is leading major countries to dump the dollar for their own currency. But there's another reason these countries are running from the dollar.
Let me guess. The astronomical debt America is in.
Yeah, bingo. Think of it this way. Let's say you live in Europe and you want to buy oil. Since oil is priced in dollars, the first thing you need to do is actually buy dollars first. Then you can buy the oil. Therefore, the value of your currency, in this case we'll say euro, is crucial. You want the euro to hold on to as much of its value as possible. And for that to happen, people must produce at least as much as they consume. Now, if they don't, the value of the currency falls, prices rise, and the standard of living drops.
To the producers, go the spoils.
Well, that's true for everyone except Americans, because here in America, we've been spoiled, brother.
Yeah.
We can consume to our heart's content. We don't have to worry about buying the money to buy stuff because the US dollar is accepted everywhere. Instead of producing to get the dollars we need, what do? We just had to borrow. And look at the borrowing binge we've been on.
Wow, our national debt has reached more than $35 trillion. Almost $105,000 in debt for every single American? No way we can pay that off.
Almost $105,000 in debt for every single American. There's no way we can pay that off. That $35 trillion makes America the highest debtor in the world. In fact, we just might be the highest debtor nation in history. We pay that debt by simply printing more dollars, which leads to an oversupply of dollars, which leads to a devaluation. This charade can only go on for so long before the nations we owe money to stop accepting US dollars or demand more dollars for repayment.
Dave, you mentioned to me privately that there is a sinister reason Washington wants to devalue the dollar.
I'll get to that in a bit. First, let's bring all of this full circle. Let's go back to how America secured access to cheap oil. We have an agreement with the Saudis to keep oil prices cheap. That's why until about 2020, our gas prices were some of the lowest in the world. Today, the average price of a gallon of gas in the US is, $3.43. Still cheap when you consider that the French pay about $7.51 a gallon. In Italy, it's almost $8 a gallon. And in Hong Kong, you ready? They're paying more than $12 for a gallon of gas.
Yeah, but inflation, due to money printing and excessive debt, has seen our gas prices spike by over 124% since 2004.
Once we got off the gold standard, inflation has eroded our buying power every single year. That's why it's so important to have a powerful and stable currency. Look, the problem is that the dollar is losing its status as the world's currency. What most people don't realize is that major currencies throughout history have fallen and been replaced.
Sure. You've got, Britain, for instance, right?
Yeah, right, Britain, exactly. The British sterling, God bless you, was the world's reserve currency in the 18th and 19th centuries. Now, more than 200 years of global economic dominance, and it all came crashing down in the mid-20th century.
As soon as they went socialist, everything fell apart.
Yeah, British leaders decided to take from the rich and give to everybody else. The government took over private enterprise, they screwed everything up. Next thing you know, Britain is flat broke.
And the British citizens paid the price.
Because one of the dumb things the British government did was to devalue its currency on purpose. That move instantly made everyone poorer. One economic blunder after another threw the value of the sterling into a death spiral. By the mid-70s, inflation in Britain was almost 27% a year. The British sterling never recovered and it lost its world reserve currency status for good.
Wow, 27% inflation in a single year? Seems eerily similar to the 40-year high inflation we've experienced lately. It also makes you wonder if the US dollar is as bulletproof as everyone thinks it is.
Well, it's not just the British sterling currencies that have collapsed over time. It also happened in Zimbabwe. Remember Zimbabwe dollars? You know, at one point, the Zimbabwe dollar was valued at about 25% higher than the US dollar. Then the government started spending more. They enforced wage and price controls. fired up that old money printing press, and proceeded to drive inflation up 11,000% in 2007.
And that's when the Zimbabwe dollar cratered.
Yep. At one point, it got so bad that $500 million Zimbabwe dollars were worth only $2.5 US.
Talk about destroying your own currency.
Well, look, to some extent, they're doing it now here in the US with the US dollar. Massive printing is driving its value down. The weak economy, due to dumb policies, has the world losing faith in the US and the US dollar. Foreign nations are banding together to trade in their own currencies and abandon the US dollar altogether. The writing is on the wall, DC. Now it's time to put up a fortress around our income, savings, and retirement. Now, when it's not too late. You know what I mean?
I do, but let me get this straight. You're saying that the US dollar will be replaced as the world's reserve currency. You're saying this because the dollar is being devalued by the Fed with all the printing. And you're saying this is inevitably going to happen. And when it does happen, Americans will face the worst inflation, even economic depression we've ever seen?
Look, I'm saying the evidence points in that direction to the US dollar losing its status. There's no way of telling and knowing what will happen, but it's already in process. Major world powers are dumping the dollar for trade. Even the Saudis hinted at joining the BRICS nations. If the dollar falls out of favor, it could spell trouble.
The dollar's so intertwined in the global economy.
It is, but when a currency starts losing too much of its value too quickly, inflation is usually going to go right off the charts. During the Weimar Republic, the inflation skyrocketed at a rate of 29,500% per month.
Per month?
Prices doubled every 4 days. The German currency was effectively worthless. You needed a wheelbarrow full just to pay for a loaf of bread.
Are we headed towards something that catastrophic?
Look, we could be. Probably not that bad, but that's even not really the point of this. The point is what's happening in the US with the US dollar points to a coming inflation crisis. Unless you know how to hedge against inflation and even profit from it, you end up being at its mercy. And like former Treasury Secretary Monica Crowley said, if you think inflation is bad now, just wait. It's going to mean raging inflation, so much worse than anything else we have ever experienced. It also points to something else that Crowley said, a sinister reason Washington and the Fed are purposefully devaluing the dollar. But we're going to get to that one later.
Okay, so we know they're driving the dollar into the ground by printing too many dollars into circulation. How else are they devaluing the dollar?
Again, we talked about the massive debt that the US is in. Just take another look. This is unsustainable, and it will erode the power of the dollar if it continues. Let's not forget the movement by certain nations away from the dollar and into their own currencies. The BRIC nations, as they're called, were gathered, listen, by Vladimir Putin. He beckoned Brazil, India, China, and South Africa to join him and Russia in decoupling their economies from the dollar, and it's starting to work. Even Saudi Arabia, as I said, the country that we protect, is considering joining the BRICS last time I heard. That's just unbelievable, DC.
Okay, but why did Vlad the Terrible even consider taking Russia off the dollar?
Well, that's where we have to thank clueless Joe Biden. You see, the dollar is a powerful economic weapon. Biden decided to weaponize the dollar against Russia when Putin invaded Ukraine by sanctioning the daylights out of him. We have over 22,000 sanctions against Russia. In fact, Biden did make history because this was the first time in history that we ever sanctioned a country's central bank. Biden basically sanctioned Russia to the point where they can't even use dollars because they've been shut out of the global financial system.
I see. So Putin was effectively forced to game the system so that he could keep Russia economically viable.
Bingo! You know your stuff, DC, you do. Look, when you continue and combine all of these factors, and some we don't even know about, it's obvious that the dollar is hurtling in an inflationary environment. Factors are lining up in ways that make me, well, frankly, nervous. But the most heinous thing about this entire situation, DC, is that they're doing it on purpose.
You mean our own government and Federal Reserve are working hand in hand to systematically destroy the dollar? Why?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, buddy. Look, based on my research, the answer is nothing short of shocking.
I'm sitting on pins and needles.
Yeah, I could tell. Let's go back to what Monica Crowley, the former Assistant U.S. Treasury Secretary, this is what she said at the end of the video clip we played when the documentary started.
Again, oil is the critical linchpin of this. If Saudi Arabia decides to join with America's enemies here and start trading oil in different currencies, that is going to undermine the entire global economic system. And here at home, you know what it's going to mean for us? It's going to mean raging inflation, so much worse than anything we have ever experienced, Will. Yeah. And I'll tell you, they're setting it up so that they can then come to the rescue.
Oh, wow. She's saying that this is some kind of setup which will allow them total control of everything that we buy? What does she mean exactly?
Okay, look, here's what's been going on. The powers that want total control of everything, how can they gain control? Economically, that's how. So they cooked up this idea of a central bank digital currency. It's basically a government cryptocurrency. But it's not just any ordinary digital currency. No, this one is programmable.
Programmable money that we're forced to use?
Give this man a cigar. Look, you know, we're laughing, but you nailed it, DC. Central bank digital currency, or CBDCs, are programmable money that the government can use to spy on our financial transactions. I'm going to say that again. Central bank digital currency, or CBDCs, are programmable money that the government can use to spy on our financial transactions. That's why I call it spy coin.
Okay, but I'm still not getting why they need to get rid of the dollar.
Simple. Every year, trillions of dollars are transacted via credit cards. Credit and debt cards accounted for 10.4 trillion in transactions per year recently, according to the Nielsen report. The government loves that because they can then get an electronic paper trail of all those transactions if they want to, right?
Sure, of course.
Well, what paper trail can they get for a cash transaction?
None.
That's right. And there's no better way to get and keep control of a population than by controlling their money. Remember what Crowley said? She said, if they force CBDC on us, it means, and I quote, the loss of your individual economic freedom, because the government will have total access and control of everything you buy and sell, and the ability to turn it off, like that.
Let me see if I get this straight. By creating a programmable currency, the government and Fed would effectively create the largest mass surveillance system the world has ever seen?
And you know what?
What?
The system is already live. It's been live for over a year. It's called FedNow. The U.S. Federal Reserve runs it. America's largest banks are coming on board one by one by one. In fact, the system has more than 900 financial institutions already on board. I don't know, DC, maybe your bank is already using it too. FedNow is what gives the government the technology to spy on and control almost every bank transaction in the country.
What do you mean by control?
Well, here's a direct quote from the IMF Deputy Managing Director Bo Lee, who said, CBDC can allow government agencies and private sector players to program targeted policy functions. By programming a CBDC, money can be precisely targeted for what people can own and what people can do. According to the Cato Institute, CBDC would most likely be the single largest assault on financial privacy since the creation of the Bank Secrecy Act and the establishment of the third-party doctrine. They went on to say, with so much data in hand, a CBDC would provide countless opportunities for the government to control citizens' financial activity.
how could they control our financial activity?
3 ways. 1, freezing or seizing assets. The government knows that financial sanctions can work, but a CBDC would make this process even faster while giving them basically unfettered control over our money. 2, negative interest rates. They would do this to spur spending. Imagine going into your savings account and seeing that you're paying the bank to hold your money, not the other way around. 3, programmable spending. With a CBDC, they could prohibit or limit what you buy and how much you buy of it. They could do that for whatever reason they concocted. Again, we're talking about total financial control of the masses. It might not matter who lives in the White House, because those who want to roll this system out are already doing it. FedNow has been operational since August 1st, 2023.
This almost sounds like it could turn into a global power grab, especially if central banks across the world begin to develop and use their own CBDCs.
They're already doing it, DC. Something like 134 countries and currency unions that make up 99% of the global GDP are researching CBDCs. Of those, 66 countries are in development, pilot, or launch phases. CBDCs aren't coming, they're already here, and they're here to stay.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm getting this straight. They're weaponizing inflation to devalue the dollar on purpose. As a result, the dollar has begun losing its status as the world reserve currency, to the point that rogue nations are banding together to trade using currencies other than the dollar, which is fine with the government and the Fed because they want nothing more than to get rid of physical cash dollars and impose programmable money on us in the form of central bank digital currencies, or what you call spy coin.
Yep.
And if that gets rolled out across the board, we can say goodbye to financial privacy forever, which is what they want because it gives them total control and power. Is that it in a nutshell?
You got it.
So what can we do to protect ourselves and make money?
Look, as far as I'm concerned, the key to becoming financially indestructible, you see, I figured out the money game a long time ago, DC. The trick is to know how to be in total control so that you can grow your investment capital in any market environment, including the coming downturn. Since figuring this out, I've gone on to amass millions of dollars in assets under management, and I've become a financially independent individual. And I've gotten on the inside. I've been rubbing elbows with some millionaires and even a couple of billionaires. And they've showed me what's exactly really going on and how to grow my money, matter of fact.
So you must have a specific investment strategy to do this.
Yeah, I do. The strategy is to put my money into an asset class that delivers above market returns, passive income and cash flow, automatic equity appreciation, plus tax benefits that you can't get anywhere else.
I'm all ears. But is this something accessible to just about anyone?
Yes, and here's why. What the wealthy do, the guys and girls like me who are, making the money, have the ability to have this stuff under management, is what we do is we put our money in a very specific asset class, and it's completely off of Wall Street. Alternative investments that have beaten the S&P by 26.4% over a recent 24-year period. Not only does it beat the paper market when things go up, it beats the market when things go down too.
You mean like during market crashes?
Right. Look, when the dot-com crash in the early 2000s drove the market into the ground, the NASDAQ fell about 80%, vaporized an estimated $5 trillion worth of investor capital. This asset class brought a return of up to 15%. Now, during the financial crisis of 2008, the market fell more than 50%, and Americans lost $10.2 trillion in wealth. This asset class returned a positive 5.2%. Even during the COVID crisis, when stocks cratered by 34%, Forbes said that this asset class has long held strong against uncertainty and economic swings, and the COVID-19 pandemic has proven to be no exception.
Obviously, it's not gold, silver, or other precious metals, crypto, traditional real estate, or any other typical investments you hear about.
No, it's not. This is the one investment the wealthy have kept to themselves for decades because it can beat inflation, it can hedge against recession, and provide cash flow, appreciation, and generational wealth. Look, major investors are pouring billions into this asset class right now. The Wall Street Journal reported that Blackstone, the world's largest alternative asset manager, is investing $10 billion into this. Billionaire David Rubenstein is backing an investment firm who recently raised $240 million to invest in this asset class. It's a lot of money, DC. According to Bloomberg, multi-billionaire Amancio Ortega, Spain's richest man, guess how much he put up? $232 million to get into the action also.
Obviously, this is where you put your money, right?
As I mentioned, we have millions of dollars worth of assets under management, and I'm looking for more every single day. The good news is now this alternative investment is finally available to the rest of us. It's called private equity multifamily real estate.
So Dave, one of the most significant places that people have gotten hit with inflation over the past 5 years is housing, meaning rent.
Yeah, so look, it's interesting. I don't know what the rents are in this place, but the national average in the past 5 years has seen a rent increase of 28.9%. Think about that. Yeah. It's a huge increase. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that the tenant is paying obviously more, but on the other side of the equation is the fact that the owners are gaining more. Mm-hmm. So we look at an investment like this as a hedge against the inflation. You've heard that before.
Yeah.
And what that basically means is inflation went up 8-9% just in the last year, and yet the rental incomes have been able to almost outpace that to make sure that there was still a margin of profit available in the multifamily commercial real estate world.
Yeah.
Look, we can't guarantee that year after year after year. There's been some anomalies, right? There's been some outliers, as they call them, with regard to these numbers. But what I do know is this: while everybody else has been suffering because of the inflationary environment, commercial real estate investors and owners, they've been able to profit in a down market. And that's really what we've been talking about all day when we've been going through the processes of Inflation Nation and what it really means.
We know that you've done a lot of deals. You've done single family deals, you've done multifamily deals, private equity. If you were starting over brand new, what would you focus on now in today's market?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I always focus on education first, right? Learning any strategy that you want to deploy. And again, then it determines on your age, your access to capital. Are you going to do quick stuff in the single family business and learn contractual real estate? Or maybe you're in my age group where, you're looking towards the better years, if you will, going forward. In my age group, I want to be able to maximize my retirement planning, right? I start looking at that finish line, DC, and I say, do I have enough to get me through to whatever? We live so much longer now. So in my perspective of where I am, if you resonate with my age group, then I want to be looking to what I call velocitized capital. Make that money work hard. Because I think you'll agree with me, there's a lot of money out there that's wicked lazy sitting in savings accounts. And God forbid it's sitting in a retirement account like a 401k, then it's just not getting any muscle behind it. So, what can you do to velocitize? Well, taking that retirement money and putting it into asset classes where you have an expectation of what about 3 to 5 years, doubling the value of the money that you put into an asset. Would that change your environment?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know who wouldn't.
Right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It sounds good, right, when I roll that number off of my tongue, but you got to remember there's combined 70 years of experience, at our company to be able to put those kind of numbers together. So again, it's such a broad question. It all depends on where you are, how much capital you have to play with. Do you want to learn how to use just other people's money, or do you want to velocitize your own money? And if you can answer those questions in what it is that you want, then there's a good strategy for it. But at the end of the day, real estate hasn't changed that dramatically. It's buy right, invest right up front, Otherwise, people are out there saying, hey, real estate doesn't work. It does work. It works every time if you get it right.
Hey, Dave, when we were driving down Fort Myers Beach,
Yeah.
we started talking about workforce housing. I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that and what we're seeing behind us. Is this workforce housing?
Yeah, this is exactly it. So in Florida, there's really only two types of housing. You've got your high-end condos. I call them palm trees, bikinis, and drinks with umbrellas, right? Gated communities. Those go anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month in rent. And then that's a lot of money anywhere in the country. And then you get the lower price point, if you will. That's anywhere between $750 to maybe $1,000 a month. It's not quality housing. There's single family houses also that have just been rehabbed over and over again. And renters don't want those either. So this is one of our projects. This is 106 units. It's in Cape Coral, Florida. There's 5 buildings here. Some are 3 stories, some are 2 stories. And what it does is it fills what we call the mixed middle, if you will. So workforce housing, I mean, the rents on these, it's interesting. We've talked about the rental demand in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Supply and demand is basic 101 when it comes to business. When we first started this project, we were saying our rents were around $1,400 to $1,500 a month. But because of the massive increase in rents over that period of time, these will rent anywhere between $1,850, maybe even as much as $1,900 a month. So what are the tenants getting? They're getting brand new A-class housing in a residential neighborhood, which is rare, at a price point that they can afford. So it just absolutely screams, build as much of this stuff as you can. This will be ready and on the market. It might not look like it right now, but these guys move fast.
Yeah.
These will be renting up in the next 90 days, and then we'll do it in stages to rent them up, and our investors win, contractors are winning, the people who live here win.
Yeah.
We might make a couple of bucks if we're lucky.
Yeah.
It's a good model.
That's great. You know, when you think about it, the only option that they have is low-income housing.
Yeah.
They're probably really run down and you don't want to live there.
Yeah, for sure.
And for a few $100s more, you're providing a very affordable option for some brand new housing.
Yeah. Well, when we were down the beach and I was talking about the fact of the inventory that got washed away, that's the inventory you're talking about. These little single family homes built in the 40s and the 50s, and they just didn't meet any hurricane code. So now, as you can see, we build bunkers. These really are bunkers.
Right.
Hurricane impact windows, meeting all the code that's necessary.
Can they get started by just buying like a little fraction of this,
Yeah,
like 100,000, 200,000,
Yeah.
and have you do all the work and all the hard work based on all your years of experience, so they don't have that startup risk?
Yeah, of course. It's a team effort. And if we think about, this is a $26 million project. 19.9 million was the construction loan that was needed. The extra 6 million was money down, cost of engineering, cost of architecture, cost of permitting, right? The city of Cape Coral did very well on this project. So all of those extra costs, well, that has to come from somewhere. Some of it comes from us, the GP, the general partner in the deal, but the rest of it comes from fractional investors known as LPs, limited partners.
That's amazing.
This is where the wealthy plow their capital. Some of the investors who work with us have said during this last downturn, while stocks were cratering, this one guy, he took his money out of the paper market, he put it into private real estate, sat on the sidelines and watched the horror show. That's what he said. But the whole time he felt like he was totally safe because his money was in private equity multifamily properties and it was secure and growing. That's important, despite the bloodbath that was going on Main Street. However, before anyone gets involved with private equity multifamily investing, there's one step that they need to take first. It's always to get educated. That's the first step. It's the one that I took to become independently free, and I took that one about a year ago.
Okay, so what do they need to know?
I just released a special book titled Inflation Nation. It explains everything. The book reveals the insider secrets for beating hyperinflation and building wealth in the new economy using private equity real estate as the vehicle. Because believe it or not, you can use inflation to grow wealth. You just have to know how. This book explains the steps for turning inflation into an asset you can profit from. Your neighbors won't know about this, but everyone will wonder how you're getting ahead while they're getting left behind. Just to put things in perspective, the wealthy don't worry about inflation, DC. We profit from it by having assets that increase our income as inflation goes up. This is a foreign concept to most people. Once someone learns this, their life will never be the same, I promise, provided that they follow through. Inside the pages of Inflation Nation, I go in depth on how to make inflation work for you instead of against you. My contention is that anyone who is willing to follow the steps that I outline can do it. What I show you works, even if the government rolls out spy coin or whatever they decide to do in the next decade. It works because this is what wealthy people do, and they fight tooth and nail to make sure that certain laws are on the books and that they know how to use those laws in their favor. I think anyone who reads this book will walk away with $1 million education in how to fight inflation and win. Not just one time, DC, but every time.
Obviously, I'm privy to some of this information, and I gotta tell you, it has made a huge financial difference to me and my family. What else do you have up your sleeve?
I'm glad you asked. Look, America is facing a dire retirement crisis. More people than ever have little to no retirement savings. You know, they bought into the big lie that stocks are the best way to invest for the long haul. There's nothing wrong with stocks, but they are not the best way to save for retirement. They're not even close, brother. That's why everyone should read Retirement Freedom: How to Build Wealth Safer and Faster with a Self-Directed IRA.
Self-directed IRAs are great because you can use them to invest in private approved assets.
Yeah, that's right. You hear about people buying gold with a self-directed IRA.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
What isn't so common is using a self-directed individual retirement account to invest in premium private equity real estate. My favorite, of course, is multifamily properties. You can leverage this kind of an IRA to make investments that will grow that retirement account so that your money isn't just sitting there doing nothing. You can turn it over and make substantial returns that you can put back into your IRA without any penalties.
And of course, these kinds of investments are not correlated to the stock market.
Correct.
When the stock market crash comes, it won't really affect the multifamily sector, right?
Well, look, it will have some extent, but not that much. Remember, we talked earlier about how multifamily performed well even during previous market crashes. The dot-com crash in the early 2000s, for instance, NASDAQ fell 80%, vaporizing an estimated $5 trillion in investor wealth. Multifamily during that period bought returns of up to 15%. During the financial crisis, 2008, the market fell what, more than 50%? Americans lost $10.2 trillion of wealth. The multifamily sector during that period of time returned a positive 5.2%. Now, it might not sound like much, but it's better than losing half of your wealth. Let me say that again. It might not sound like much, but it's better than losing half of your wealth. Look, not only has multifamily preserved wealth and hedged against the market downturns, it actually makes money even when the you-know-what hits the fan.
That's right. Even during the COVID crash, when stocks cratered by 34%, Forbes said multifamily held strong against uncertainty and economic swings.
Look, the wealthy will use a self-directed IRA to invest wisely in multifamily properties and let their money grow in an economic environment, any economic environment. That's what Retirement Freedom explains in detail. However, it's just as important to know what kinds of financial schemes to stay away from.
Unfortunately, a financial advisor or a broker might not be the best source of information.
Look, usually not. That's why I also released a new book titled Deceived: The 8 Biggest Financial Scams That People Still Believe.
Like what?
Well, there are 8 insidious beliefs that are taught at home and unfortunately in our schools, but they don't work in our current society, nor did they ever work well for anyone who wanted financial freedom. One of them, for instance, is the false belief that higher education necessarily leads to wealth and economic prosperity. It's just not true, brother.
I know plenty of people with college degrees struggling to make ends meet right now.
That's because the school system doesn't teach you how to make money and increase wealth. It teaches you how to be an obedient worker bee. Learning a skill, shall we say, to make a living is not the same as learning how finances work and how to use a tax system, for example, in our favor. I wrote this book to steer people away from these deceptions and to help them see what works in the real world. Trust me, it's got little to do with what they teach you in the classroom.
So if the school system is letting us down, and it is, what's a viable solution to help people understand the truth about money, income, and wealth accumulation?
Well, my next book, Hooked on Cash Flow, How to Buy Your First Investment Property. It's a very good start because there are two main ways to earn money, right?
Sure, either you work for it or it works for you.
Yeah, you work for the money or the money works for you. Right on the money. Look, in school, you're taught to be a good worker bee, you're taught to work for money, but again, that's not how the wealthy do it. They buy and or control assets that spin off cash flow in the form of equity, for example, or cash flow from a building.
And that's what Hooked on Cash Flow is all about. How to invest in real estate that creates cash flow without you having to do the work.
That's right. That's exactly right. Look, this book will detail how to find solid investments, how to separate the good deals from the bad, ways to put deals together that don't require great credit or even your own credit, and a lot more. Basically, I wrote the book to take anyone through the process of securing their first cash flowing real estate deal.
Okay, so let's do a little recap of everything. Inflation Nation explains the insider secrets for beating hyperinflation and building wealth in the new economy. Retirement Freedom reveals how to build wealth safer and faster with a self-directed IRA. Deceived exposes the 8 biggest financial scams people still believe and gives you the alternatives anyone can use to grow wealthier. Hooked on Cash Flow shows people how to buy their first or next cash flowing real estate property. I think you also told me about a special report titled How to Create Your Own Private Bank Nobody Can Touch.
Yeah, that's right. There is a legitimate way to essentially be your own private bank and fund your own investments.
How do you do that?
Well, through a smart use of a certain financial instrument available to everybody. The financial instrument has stood the test of time since the late 18th century. I'll give you an example. J.C. Penney used it to survive the Great Depression. Walt Disney used it to fund his vision of Disneyland when banks wouldn't lend to him. Even Ray Kroc, founder of McDonald's, he used this financial instrument to run his operations when other funding options were unavailable.
And this financial instrument is available to anybody?
Yeah, but most people, they don't even know about it. That's why I wrote the book. Look, DC, here's the bottom line. Most people don't know this stuff. Again, schools don't teach it, brother. Parents don't teach it. This is the real financial education everybody needs, but only the wealthy seem to have gotten it. Now, through these books, I'm making it available to anyone who wants to get ahead and stay ahead of inflation, market downturns, and any other economic challenge that most of us will face in our lifetimes. Implementing this education is the answer.
I'll tell you this. I went to college and business school, got a great education, but I've gone through these priceless books and the education they provide. I just wish I had them 20 years ago when I was starting business. They would have saved me a lot of headaches while making me a whole lot wealthier too. And for only 140 bucks, that's a steal.
Look, man, it's even better than that because I plan on practically giving them away. You ready? Before we get into that, let's make everyone understand exactly what's at stake here. Most of us are at the mercy of market forces beyond our control. Inflation, stock market meltdowns, bad fiscal monetary policies that kill the dollar, historically out of control debt that put us all of us in economic danger, and any number of other factors that impact your money, buying power, and the ability to create and save wealth. This is what we're fighting against, brother. In my experience, nothing comes close to growing and securing wealth like the strategies taught in these books.
Yeah, this is like the ultimate financial freedom education.
Yeah, look, like I said it a few minutes ago, I'm practically giving it away for free because all I'm asking is $4.95 for Inflation Nation, and everything else I'm giving away as a bonus.
Wow, that's $140 worth of value for less than $5? Really?
Really? Consider this for a moment, right? Imagine a bona fide, multi-millionaire, independent individual who has figured out the money game coming to you and giving you the financial freedom education of a lifetime for less than a cup of coffee and a piece of pie. Well, what would you do?
I'd be all over it.
Yeah, of course you'd be all over it. That's why you're successful, my friend. Because you can see where the value is and you take the action. Most people, DC, I'm going to be frank, they're going to watch this and they won't pull the trigger, as the saying goes. They won't do anything, do nothing, get nothing.
That's just crazy. It's not only the value that is off the charts, it's the utility of the education. These are usable strategies anyone can implement immediately.
That's right. Now, let's go back real quick. Here's why I created the educational bundle in the first place.
By introducing central bank digital currencies. Right. If they were to do that, and the United States already has a pilot program, that means the loss of your individual economic freedom, because the government will have total access and control of everything you buy and sell, and the ability to turn it off like that.
Ominous warning. I hear you. Saudi Arabia is the tipping point. Oil trading in dollars is the tipping point. And obvious huge consequences for our economy.
We're living in precarious times, DC. It feels like the calm before the storm, if you will.
I'm with you 100%. Things are off. And even if a new administration fixes some things, inflation is still going to keep eroding the middle class. Their buying power, ability to increase their income and build wealth is all impacted by inflation. The key is to become financially savvy by getting the right education and then making the right moves.
And I've made these strategies as accessible as possible. They could be the springboard for millions of people to actually achieve true financial freedom. I encourage everyone watching this documentary to get their hands on the material now, because we are not making them available forever. Just click on the button below this documentary, then go to the next page, place your secure order. Oh, and you've really got nothing to lose either, I promise you. If you're not blown away by Inflation Nation and the bonus bundle, just say the word, and in the first 30 days, you'll get every penny of your $4.95 back. No questions asked.
A world-class financial education from a bona fide multimillionaire private equity real estate investor for less than a cup of coffee and a piece of pie. I don't think anyone should struggle to make this decision.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, as they say. For anyone who is watching this who knows in their gut that this is the right move, I encourage them to click the button below the documentary and get the Financial Freedom Bundle right now. Going through this material will be life-changing. It will be a life-changing experience. And that, my friends, is something that I guarantee.
All right, Dave, so if somebody missed, part of the movie and they want to recap, let's just do a little recap.
Yeah.
So the bottom line, I'm very direct. So let's assume you're talking directly to me. Bottom line, what do I need to know and what do I need to do right now to protect myself?
Yeah, look, man, there's a financial juggernaut heading towards every single one of us. If somebody has retirement account, savings account, even their businesses have any attachment to the stock market, they're in the red zone. The awareness of the information that we shared in this movie, this documentary, is second to none. I've done my research. I know what's going on with regard to devaluing the dollar, with the geopolitical environment in which we're sitting in right now. And that changes all the time. 1 minute it might be Israel, 1 minute it might be the Ukraine, the Middle East. It's always evolving, but it all impacts what goes on at home. So how do you make yourself protected? How do you build that financial fortress around your retirement accounts, around your kids' future, around your present day needs? It's that dire right now. So what we did was we put a financial package of literacy together, a number of different books from cash flow to Inflation Nation, which is the primary book that we're bringing to market based off of the information we shared here. But once they get that information is only powerful, DC, if it's implemented, right?
Right.
Which is why the investment for the books is so short. It's a short money, $4.95. You spend more than that on a Starbucks cup of coffee right now. But my goal would be that those who want the help, who want to be protected, who want to be able to thrive through the inflationary environment, that they take this information and implement it. That's really what it's all about. Because I promise you there are dangers coming, and there will be two kinds of people, those that succeed and those that fail. We used to say victims or victors of the circumstances. So with this information, I know, you know, that people who use the information we give them will be victors of the environment, rather than the majority, which unfortunately will be victims. So get the books, get them when? Now.
Get them now.
Read them, and then implement the stuff that's in there. A lot of work gone behind it, and I appreciate you being here to share it with me, brother. Good stuff.
Thank you.